So when someone moves to Des Moines or moves to a new area, you're always worried about what do you not know that no one's telling you about. In this video, I'm going to go through the 5 things that I think when someone moves to Des Moines, because I've moved to Des Moines, that they're going to find a little annoying when you live here. So let's dig in. I moved here from a small town about 12 years ago. Grew up in I think there were 700 people in our small town. And so restaurants, you didn't have any choices. And so when you went out on a Friday or Saturday night, you drove 30 minutes to the other larger town, which was 5,000 people. And then you had restaurants there. But the choices of those restaurants weren't any good either, or comparative to the big city. So when on a very special occasion, you would drive to Des Moines to have a very nice night out or a dinner. And that is a perspective of folks that came from maybe a place that had very few restaurants. Now, flip that on the other end of the spectrum, and if you're coming from a New York City, a Chicago, one of the larger cities, your options for restaurants in those cities is going to dwarf what you're going to have for options in Des Moines. Now, don't get me wrong, Des Moines restaurant and bar scene, it's pretty good. It's pretty localized. It's quirky. It's fun. I think you can spend a lot of time going out in Des Moines at good restaurants and find a lot of value, have a lot of fun, meet great people, like, no question about it. But if you compare that number to the number of restaurants you're going to find in a New York or the larger cities, you're going to be pretty disappointed in the number of high-end Chinese, the number of high-end sushi places, the number of high-end steak places. You're going to have fewer numbers than what you would in the larger cities, which is expected when you have Des Moines, which is a population of 750,000 people in the Des Moines metro, comparative to 2, 3, 4, 10 million people in some of those bigger cities. So one of the downsides of Des Moines, I would put some of our top restaurants against other cities' top restaurants, but the quantity of those top restaurants, there just aren't as many of those as there might be in other big cities. Another kind of slight downside of Des Moines is when it comes to a concert venue, we don't always get prime date time in maybe tours, right? So when you think of the large names, Des Moines is going to be in the middle of Omaha, which is 2 or 3 times larger than Des Moines population-wise, and Chicago, if you look at it on a map, right? So Des Moines is going to might get the big tour, but it's going to get it midweek. And although concerts are fun, even midweek, a concert on a Friday or Saturday night is much more fun. The other flip side of that too is our local bands. Like, we have some pretty solid local music entertainment. And so if you don't need those big headliner bands and you just want to hear some of the local scene, if you poke your nose around, find the bar, the restaurant that does local bands and spotlights local artists, I think you'll be pretty impressed, pretty happy. So the time I'm recording this it's springtime. And in Iowa, our springtime consists of one day it's 30 degrees below zero, and the next day it's 50 degrees out. But the downside of that is you have rain freezing inside of concrete, causing huge potholes. And anyone who's drove in the Midwest this time of year, you are annoyed by the number of potholes that your car is hitting. Now, if you're driving Uber, you're driving, someone else is driving you around, nothing you have to worry about. But the potholes that you have to dodge while you're driving in Iowa this time of year is enormous. On the flip side of that, what comes from the potholes, there are construction cones and lanes getting blocked off pretty much the entire spring, summertime in order to fix potholes, repair roads, add new lanes, any of those. So the road construction in most Midwest cities, Des Moines specifically, That's what this is about. There's road construction everywhere, all the time. So expect it. The good side of that is even with road construction going on all the time, the traffic, the commute that you're taking to go somewhere, it is very rarely impacted. Just a little annoying. So keep that in mind. Next on the list is one of the things that Iowa, and in general Des Moines lacks a little bit, is outside activities. Now, we know that we're from Iowa. We're in Iowa. There are not mountains and oceans to, live it up in those hiking type communities. But there are some things to do outside. The downside is you're really limited based on our geographic location. You're not going to be able to drive an hour to the mountains to go snowboarding, or drive an hour to the beach to go sit on the beach and enjoy the sand between your toes. That's just not a thing you're going to get in Iowa. But we do have, our state parks and trails, although there's not a lot of elevation, there's a lot of miles that are available in Iowa. A lot of state parks that are really unknown. For example, my wife and kids went on a park tour 2 years ago, and they visited, I want to say, over 50 different playgrounds throughout Des Moines, central Iowa area. And I went with them on a few of them, and we went to some very, very small state parks in the middle of the country that had really pretty cool playgrounds. And the kids got to enjoy nature, and we got to see a different part of the countryside that, we don't normally see. So that's one thing that if you are an outdoorsy or activity type person, you're going to have to kind of find your own activities, find some of the activities that, trip your trigger or whatever you're interested in. But if you look hard, if you hit up the right resources, I promise you can find things to do in Iowa, especially Des Moines. And then last on the list, we have school sports. Although Iowa does have a pretty good academic system, sports system, the size of our schools really limits the number of high quality of athletes that come out of the state of Iowa. Now, people would argue that, sports and athletes and academics, it all intertwines, and athletics is only a portion of someone's future talents, right? Which I completely agree. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would also argue a little bit that folks that are high achieving in sports can have a very high degree of professional job skills, right? It transfers of some capacity. The one thing that Iowa does not have is really, really high-end athletic, I don't want to say training, but athletic divisions, right? If you go down to Texas, they live and breathe football, and football, baseball, basketball, those big sports. There are, thousands and thousands of dollars that are put toward those athletics in high school. In Iowa, yes, we have big programs. There are some, but the quantity of those programs, there just isn't very many. If you are moving to the city, Des Moines, and your child excels in some of those big sports, you're going to want to, if you want them to compete at the highest level, you're going to have to look into the correct school system that would accommodate what you're looking for in athletics. Now, in these videos, we're not trying to sell you on moving to Des Moines. We're not trying to talk you out of moving on Des Moines. We don't care where or what you do with your moving process, but what we try to do is just educate you on what is happening in Des Moines, and to give you a good perspective on, if you are considering Des Moines, what you should know about the city that, you just usually can't find in a blog post. You can't find, no one's going to shoot you straight and tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And that's what we do on this channel. We are real estate agents, but we really try to help people just find the right place to call home within the state of Iowa. So if any of that interests you, reach out below, subscribe to the channel, watch some other videos. We do this all the time, every day, all day long. So happy to help, and good luck with your search.